You know, episodes like this remind me of why I was so excited for Rebels, which, for curiosity, as of this exact moment in time, I still have not actually watched. Several people have been funding it for the possibility of a future Mini-Nations series, and I'm aware of the stories. I've been following the story and news tidbits and summaries, but I haven't actually watched the show. Not on purpose, I just didn't have time. But I mention this because I really was excited about the concept of a show like Rebels. I feel like there's a lot of potential, especially in an episodic series, for dealing with, that kind of adaptable thinking, mobile storytelling of the underdogs who are barely keeping up. And this episode kind of showcases what I was talking about with that. I have to admit, this is probably one of the weakest city occupations I've ever seen. These people walk around with basically impunity, and you're just like, now I know. The droids have been well established in the entire show, plus the movies, as being incredibly pathetic. But that's just bad because of the patheticness of the droids, not because... It's not a good excuse, is what I'm trying to say. I like the variety of droids. This is a really weird time to talk about that, but it occurred to me, I like seeing different types of droids. I know that's expensive and difficult to do on behalf of the developers, or excuse me, the producers, which is why they use default droid models with a few different textures so often. But I still enjoy seeing the variety, because to me it makes perfect sense. You make a droid hyper-specialized. This droid is for this droid is for this. And we've seen this throughout Star Wars in general, so I like seeing the variety. Anyways. I love the King's insistence. I didn't bother remembering his name. The new King. It's like, old King, you will cease these attacks, or you will die. So he's assuming that the new King has that the old King has the level of influence and power to, despite everything, be in charge of an entire insurrection, while at the same time is sufficiently self-interested that he would be willing to end all of that in exchange for nothing other than his life. Now, when I was watching this, I was trying to decide if this meant the new king was either fishing for intel or was an idiot. And I was debating that for a while, especially since the new king, I mean, it would be easy to understand the mentality, wouldn't it? When you yourself are a selfish, self-interested jackass, it's easier to assume other people are. I'm not calling anyone out on that. I'm just saying in fiction that's a very common trope. Thing is, then later on he has the temerity to talk back to Dooku, and at the same time insinuate that it's Dooku's fault that he has been failing, and basically demand new forces and reinforcements. I am astonished Dooku didn't strangle him across the telecom. I'm dead serious. Especially since he's sending the new general whose only purpose is to basically take over for him. Anyways, so I think he's an idiot, is what I'm trying to say. So I like this. There's this bit where Saw Gerrera, they're talking about, oh my god, we need to worry about our image. We need to make sure we have the public support. And Saw is like, that's right, we need to do more damage. What? I mean, I get it. The whole point is that he is a revolutionary. Not a leader, not a thinker, not a builder, not a ruler, not anything else, just the revolutionary. Useful, but obviously very limited in scope and scale. It's even funnier because later on, they're like, the people might not trust us. And he's like, I don't understand. Why wouldn't they trust us? Because to his mind, which is very simplistic, it's so obvious. They're the good guys. They're fighting against the bad guys. And he's not wrong. It's just life isn't that simple. And I like that the episode is portraying that rather than resting on its laurels and actually portraying it as that simple, like, well, let's be honest, like this show has done several times before. So then they decide to take out the power plant. Am I the only one worried about what that would do to the people? Like, obviously most people just be inconvenienced. Oh, no, I don't have internet today. I don't have access to my computer today. What about people in the hospital? What about people on life support? What about people who were dependent on transportation for one matter or another? Or whose food might now spoil? Right? I mean, what's funny is I was expecting the episode to call that out, because overall the episode, and late Clone Wars in general, the Clone Wars, excuse me, tends to be pretty good about calling out the complexities of situations. Instead, they're just like, yeah, because that'll affect the droids. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay. And then there's this really stupid scene. I just have to comment on this. There's this scene where Gerrera is like, hey, remember, you have to roll it slow enough to get in there. And I'm like, See, that kind of line bothers me in general. It's one of the worst types of as you know, because not only is it as you know, which by itself is bad writing, but it's also a form of as you know that is specifically designed to remind the audience of something that just happened. Now, this is an episodic television show. What I mean by that is it has both forms of significant continuity. It has setting continuity and it has string continuity. So the previous episode leads directly into this one. So why are they throwing in this line of dialogue on the off chance that we forgot the episode immediately prior to this one, which this is a direct sequel of? And it's not like the Clone Wars hasn't been doing that this entire time. The entire show has been these mini arcs. Anyways, so they have the tank, and he can't get the tank powered up. Obviously, it just needed to be properly hotwired by Steela, or whatever her name is. But I mentioned this because one of the things I liked the idea of, that obviously they never do anything with, is if the droids had the ability to see in a slightly different spectrum than standard humanoids. And so all the displays were designed to output information in that spectrum. So most humanoids would get in there and be like, and they'd be flying blind. I just think that'd be kind of a cool idea. They never really do anything like that. Just a thought that occurred to me. So there's this great bit where Anakin's talking to Ahsoka, and I like how it hasn't devolved into the kind of melodrama I would expect from, say, a sitcom or whatever. She obviously has some kind of feelings for Lux. Okay. And Lux obviously has some kind of feelings for Steela, and in return. Okay. So there's a little bit of an emotional triangle there, but A, the episode doesn't spend too much time on it, and B, well, it's logical that she'd have what is basically an infatuation with this kid. It's been developing for previous episodes even, and I'm always a fan of continuity. But what I like most is how Anakin deals with the problem. She says, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble focusing. And he says, I understand. Of course Anakin Skywalker would understand that. And then his advice was something I found very amusing. I actually wrote it down word for word. I understand, but put your purpose ahead of your feelings. I like that. In my opinion, that's the advice Anakin himself needed from Yoda and Obi-Wan and Mace Windu. In other words, don't drown your feelings. Don't get rid of your emotions. Don't completely segregate yourself from connections to other people. Just moderate them. Put your duty, your purpose, your job first. Then care about people. Right? Anyways. So, I have a quick thought here. I mentioned the political complications of this entire situation back in the last episode, which I still find fascinating. I really do. But what I find most interesting here is that what has effectively happened is the Jedi Order has directly and purposefully incited and supported a rebellion against a particular national power, which itself happens to be one of their enemy. This is pretty much the definition of a proxy battle. For all of their attempts to stay back and only provide certain types of aid, from a purely political perspective, they have intervened in a way that could cause ramifications, if not for the fact that they were already at war over the CIS. I just find that interesting, how easy it is to kind of drift into that. Final note, he's my brother. Dun, dun, dun. Why is that the big dun, dun, dun at the end of the episode? Like, granted, I've seen these before, so I was just kind of automatically assuming, but they look fairly similar. They're fairly comfortable with each other, but nothing in their interactions seems particularly romantic, with the sole exception of when Saw actually twirled her in the air. It's the only thing that was like, it's like they were like, oh God, we forgot to build up this mystery. Quick, have him do something that could be misinterpreted. Then do the reveal. Whew, got into the last second there. Anyways, enjoyable episode. See you next time.